Hello and welcome to lesson 5.1 in the Python tutorial series. Today we're going to be looking at two new functions that we haven't covered in this series yet. The ordinal function, which will take a character on your keyboard and associate a number with it, and the character function, which will take a number and associate it with a character on your keyboard. Now, using these two functions, we're going to create something called a Caesar cipher, which is a very basic way to encode data and encode messages and encode things on your computer. And we'll eventually take these concepts and use them when we do read lines and write lines to encode save files for some of the games that we're making. But you can really do some neat stuff with ordinal values. So let's go ahead and head over to the programming environment and get started with encoding a secret message. Okay, so here we are in our Python programming environment, and before we look at the ordinal value, the ord and character functions, I want to pull up an ASCII table. And so I have it pulled up here in Paint, and this is something you can simply go on to Google and search for an ASCII table, and you can find a bunch of different ones. But what you can see here is we have numbers and we have keys on your keyboard. So the number 55 in Python is associated with the keyboard stroke of 7. 71 is the number associated with a capital G. Likewise, 103 is a number associated with a lowercase g. So every character on your keyboard, including uppercase and lowercase letters, have a number associated with them. That's what's known as their ordinal value. With this information, we can create some pretty interesting ciphers because we can convert characters to a number and then do some math on them and convert them back to a character. So you might want to have one of these charts sitting by you when you work with this, but for now, this is what I'm referring to, and this is where the numbers that you're going to see in the video are coming from. So back here in our programming environment, if I just go to the Python shell here, and I'm going to use a function called ord, which stands for ordinal value, and I'm going to say I want the ordinal value of a lowercase x. You can see that Python is returning the integer value of 120. Likewise, if I said the ordinal value of a capital X, I'm getting an integer value of 88. I can take the ordinal value of the string of 1. Now, it's really important to note that this is not the number 1. This is the string character of 1 that has the number 49 associated with it. And I can do that with any character on the keyboard. So I can take the ordinal value of, a close parentheses, for example, and I see that's 41. Now, I told you this was really important, that this was the string of 1. You will get an error if I take the ordinal value of 5. I'm going to get expected string of length 1, but int found. What it's saying is I was expecting a string here, but what I got was an integer, and so I can't get an ordinal value for something that's not a string. Another thing that might give you an error is if you take the ordinal value of, say, Python, because that's multiple characters in a string, you're going to get that same type error because ordinal value, or the ord function, works only on a single string character. There's also another function we're going to take a look at, which is that CHR character function, stands for character. So if I were to take the character of 105, that being an integer value, I can see that 105 is equal to the string of I. And I can check that indeed by doing the ordinal value of a lowercase I and saying that I'm receiving a 105. In the example above, we had the capital X having an ordinal value of 88. And so if I take the character value of an uppercase X, you can see there's actually a problem right there. I can't get the character value of a string, since X is already a string. What I want is the ordinal value of an uppercase X. And you can see that I'm getting the number 88 there. So I can do this for any number of strings. I can take the ordinal value of a semicolon, getting 59, and I can take the character value of 59 and return back a semicolon. So with that in mind, now that we know what the ord and character functions do, let's write a couple simple functions to put these to use. So over here in my programming window, I'm just going to create a message variable, and I'm going to say programming in Python is awesome. So that'll be my string, and I'll pass it into our first function. So my first function is I'm going to call this number message, and I'm going to pass in a parameter so that I can call up this value right here. So we're going to pass in a message. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say for I in message. Just like we've done in the past, I'm going to iterate over each character in this string. And you can see if I were to simply print I and end equals, and then we'll finish it with just a simple print statement. And just to give this, to pause the printing a little bit, we'll import time and do time.sleep 0.15. And so let's just run this really quick and run number message, passing in the value of message. And you can see in my output window here, it's printing programming in Python is awesome, just as you would expect it. But instead of printing I, what I want to do is I want to print the ordinal value of I. When we iterate over the string, we are handling each character in the string one at a time. Because of that, what we're going to do is we're going to print a numerical representation of each character in the string. With that slight change right there, if I were to run that same function, number message, passing in a value of message, you can see really simply I have encoded programming in Python is awesome to be a series of numbers. Now that's a really easy code to crack, but if I did want to send somebody a coded message in Python and I didn't want anyone to read it, I could send it as this series of numbers right here and just have them decode it after they receive the numbers, and your average person that looks at this string of numbers right here is going to have no idea what they're looking at. But we can do a little bit more than that, so let's define a new function. I'm going to call this character message, passing in a value of message. And just like I did in the previous example, I'm going to iterate over for I in message. And this time, I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to call it number. And number is going to equal the ordinal value of the letter. And of course, if I were to print the character value of number with end equals, and then we'll do the time.sleep 0.15. So if I were to do that right there and run that function, but we can do a little bit more than simply converting something to a number. So let's kind of adjust this function a little bit so that it does something that creates a little bit more of an encoded message. So instead of simply printing out the ordinal value of I, I'm going to first create a variable, and I'm going to say num equals the ordinal value of I. Essentially, we're just going to assign an integer value to num. However, before I print out that number, I'm going to num plus equals 1. I'm going to take that ordinal value, and I'm going to add 1 to it, and then instead of printing the ordinal value of I, I'm going to print the ordinal value of num. Now, I easily could have done this. This would have been the exact same thing as if I did the ordinal value of I plus 1, but I chose to do this in 2 lines of code so you could see what was going on a little bit better. If I run this now, so let's go number message, passing in a value of message. Each one of these numbers is shifted 1 higher than what it should be. What this allows me to do is if I were to put this into the character function, so if I were to say I want to return the character of that number instead of the number itself, I'm going to get an encrypted message. So I'm going to say number message and run it again. And you can see that I'm getting this encoded message right here. Now, certainly if I were to send this to somebody, they would have no idea what it meant, but really, to decode that message, all we'd have to do is get the ordinal value of each of these characters and then subtract 1. Furthermore, if you really pay attention to this encoded message, you'll see that every single letter is just shifted up by 1. So, Python programming starts with a P, a capital P. This starts with a capital Q. The next letter is a lowercase r. We have a lowercase s. The next letter is a lowercase o. We have a lowercase p. So from an alphabetical standpoint, this message is just shifted 1 character up the alphabet for the entire printout. It's kind of hard to see by sight, but that's exactly what's going on. And then every space is represented by an exclamation point. And we're not quite done with working with these ordinal values and these ord functions and character functions, but this video is getting to about the length that I wanted to get to, so we're going to stop it right here. Now, when we come back in lesson 5.2, we're going to take this exact same concept and the same code that you were looking at on the screen as this video played, and we're going to figure out how we can prompt the user to input a message, how we can encode and actually decode a coded message, and how to account for things like spaces and have those still display properly. So we'll be back in lesson 5.2. If you have any questions about what you saw in this video or any of the programs that you're trying to write, please leave those in the comments and I'll be happy to help you out any way that I can. Until next time, thank you so much for watching the Python Tutorial Series 2.0, and have a great day.